All right, hello, American National Government class. Hope you guys are having a good week. We are going to be talking about political opinion and participation and political parties in this particular module. And so obviously we'll have a series of videos here, but hopefully you've got your PowerPoint that deals with this here. And basically if you can go to the second PowerPoint slide, that would be great. And I'll walk you through some of this. So we're going to talk about, at least the first section here, about political opinion, okay? In other words, what is the actual political opinion of your average citizen in the United States, okay? And remember, the textbook definition of politics, or at least according to Webster's 1828 dictionary, politics is an extension of ethics. What we think ought to be based on some moral, some ethical framework, okay? And so, how does that affect public officials, okay? Sometimes it forces their hand, sometimes it doesn't. As I'm recording this, in June of 2020, obviously with all of the issues dealing with some of the racial challenges in our country right now, are political officials listening? Yes, they are. Okay, so you can see a good real-time example of public opinion, okay? The textbook talks about that, it's rare, officials rarely, are forced to do things. We're seeing a lot of that now. God forbid there's, a school shooting or any type of tragedy like that, okay? You'll see public opinion moving towards, some form of gun control, okay? In other words, when we're talking about political opinion, it happens all the time. You just got to kind of be aware of it. And take the example of gun control. Every time there's some sort of tragedy, Congress, and you'll see various members of Congress just kind of, take that as their opportunity to kind of trumpet the challenge. And yet when they deliberate, not a lot is done or minimally. So, again, that begs the question, how much does public opinion actually influence or cause politicians to do things? And again, it depends on the party, it depends on if you've got the votes and all that good stuff. And again, what's going on right now, it'll be very, very interesting to see what goes on. Okay, if the policy is reasonable, political leaders, will tend to decide towards something. If it's unreasonable, politicians perhaps won't. And so we're going to talk about this here. So if you go to the next slide, slide number 3, again, this is more of a playful graphic, but it's titled Us and Them. Okay, and depending on your political ideology, depending upon your worldview, you're going to look at some of these various things certain ways, and it'll reflect how you see things. Okay, in fact, we're going to talk about worldview quite a bit in this chapter. But again, think of worldview as like glasses. And it affects what you see and don't see. And it affects how you view various things, okay? So, again, if you take the us column, again, this is kind of playful, but, us, they look at government as government, okay? Them, it's tyranny, okay? You look at business, okay? And the us column, it's industry, okay? Them, it's monopoly, okay? In other words, one has a more positive view of business, another has a more negative, okay? One has a positive view of religion. Okay, another looks at it as some form of extremism, okay? And then you can go on down the line. I'm not going to belabor this point, but you can take a look at it yourself. But again, your worldview affects your political opinion. And again, is government, and business and religion and patriotism, culture, military, some form of intelligence gathering, is that public policy? Do political opinions affect that? Sure they do. And all of these are expressions of that, okay? So if you go to slide number 4, again, I've kind of already talked about this, but we all have political opinions, and we all differ in our political values, our interests, and our political opinions. Why is that? Okay, again, I refer to you to slide number 5, which is a reiteration of an earlier slide I showed you in week 1, okay? But this idea that we all have a worldview, okay? Worldviews are like noses. Everyone has one. Well, I don't want to have one. It doesn't matter. You still have one, okay? You still have a viewpoint. You still have a view of the world, okay? And by and large, our worldview affects our values, which in turn affects our behavior. Okay, our worldview determines our values and then determines how we think of ethics and what is a family. Okay, is that a public opinion issue? Is that a public policy issue? Sure it is. Okay, what's a family? Is it a marriage between a man and a woman in heterosexual relations, monogamous relations all throughout their lives? Or is it some other variant of that? Okay, is that a live issue? Sure it is. Will it continue to be a live issue? Sure it is. In fact, let me just say something. When we're talking about some of these issues, and some of these can get prickly, and some of these can be very controversial, in a democracy like ours, it's never over. Okay? There's winners and losers in elections. There's winners and losers in Supreme Court decisions or court decisions. But the beauty of our system is it's never over, ever. Okay, so it's not like one group has a majority or one group's in charge or one group, won a particular Supreme Court decision and they're like, yep, this is it. You're the loser. So in our system of government, it's never over. Why? Freedom of conscience. Why? Freedom of speech. Why? Freedom to petition government. Okay, why? Freedom of assembly. In other words, that's what makes America so great. And that's what makes a nation like North Korea so poor, so bad. Okay, because you can't do that. Right? And so again, all of these are formed by worldviews, okay? And again, it's formed by something, what is ultimate, okay? Some form of ultimate concern drives your worldview, okay? And some form of reality drives your what you think is really real determines what you see and you don't see. What is reality for you, okay, determines your viewpoints on a wide range of issues, okay? Be it some of these social issues like abortion and what's a marriage. Homosexuality, is it a deviant behavior or should it be accepted, okay? You've got a worldview and you've got a view on that, okay? And again, it's derived by what is the ultimate authority in your life that tends to drive what you see and don't see, okay? Take the example of something called scientism, okay, which is very prevalent in the hard sciences, okay? Take your, chemistry, biology, astronomy, things like that, right? According to scientism, which relies very strongly on naturalism, what you see and don't see is based on what science can discover through the empirical method. Can you taste it? Can you see it? Can you measure it? Can you weigh it? Okay? If so, that's really real. If you can't see it, taste it, touch it, measure it with the five senses, it's not really real, and it should not inform ethics. Okay? Whereas somebody who has a biblical worldview is going to embrace the empirical method, what you can see, hear, taste, touch, feel. But they're also going to say, well, there's some things, some extra material concepts that are out there, spiritual concepts that inform ethics, that inform what a family is, that informs what is good art and bad art based on some form of revelation, okay? Whether you're a Christian or whether you're Jewish or whether you're Muslim, okay? Those types of faiths embrace something called revelation, which is above and beyond the empirical world, okay? What's reality for you, okay? That's what a worldview is. That's why it's important to understand this, okay? So if you go to the next slide here, I'm just going to take a couple of components here and some ideas and kind of tease them out and let you kind of understand the implications of them based on worldview, okay? So you take naturalism. I've kind of already talked about that, but basically the idea is what's ultimate? The natural world, okay? Anything you can see, hear, taste, touch, feel, anything from your five senses, okay? That's what's really real, okay? So all phenomena is described based on natural causes. Again, go into your hard sciences. Okay, your biology, lab, and go to chemistry. Okay, that's their view of the world. Okay, so they're if you follow the logic of some of their thinking, there is no such thing as a soul. There is no such thing as spiritual things. Okay, that's your personal private opinion, but that doesn't really matter in the real world. What matters in the real world is what you can measure in the lab or the test tube. Okay, move on to something called biblical theism. Okay, is that what is ultimate? God and the revelation in his word, the Bible, okay? Or you could take any other kind of theism, okay? You could take Judaism. You could take Islam, okay? they're going to tend to embrace the natural world and revelation, something that stands outside of human experience and can hold human experience accountable, okay? So that's going to affect your view of the world. That's going to affect your view of in this case, what does the Bible say about marriage? What does it say about what a man and a woman is? What does it say about the proper form of government? What does it say about tyranny, okay? Things like that, okay? Move on to the third one, okay, postmodernism. This is probably where many of you live, move, and breathe, whether you realize it or not. And this is very pervasive in our culture right now in 2020. And that's this idea that there is no capital T truth. All there are small t truths, right? There is no grand meta-narrative story that explains life and explains reality. It's just your story. It's just your tribe. It's just your experience, right? It's just how you view the world. Hey, I know you believe that, but as for me, I don't really believe that, and how dare you apply your value system to me, okay? That's very postmodern, okay? It's a rejection of capital T truth, and it's an embrace of all these little small t truths. So truth is nothing more than a social construction, okay? So based on your gender, based on your race, based on your sexual orientation, based on your socioeconomic class, each of you have a perspective that you bring to the table. So there really is no one truth for everyone, okay? Now, why can that be problematic? Well, ethical relativism, there's no truth. If everything's relative, how do you base a legal system on that? Okay, right? Those are some of the implications of it. Okay, everything's fluid. Okay, think of gender fluidity. Okay, think of all this identity fluidity going on in our culture today. Okay, that is postmodernism. Again, what is ultimate in that system? A suspicion of a meta narrative. I know that's a big phrase, but it basically means a suspicion of anything that is fixed and permanent, that is transcendent. A suspicion of capital T truth. Well, that's just your truth, man. My experience is different, and hey, to each his own, whatever. Okay, the truth is, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Truth is in the eye of the beholder. Okay, that is very postmodern. Okay, again, I'm trying to show you worldviews because that will affect your political opinion. Okay, someone who embraces more of a postmodern view of life has no problem with legitimizing gay marriage. They have no problem in legitimizing the rights of the transgender. They have no problem with legitimizing, or perhaps even not imposing a lot of what's the word I want to say, restrictions on illegal immigrants, because if it's to each his own, whatever, as long as they're, it affects how you view some of these issues. Again, I'm just trying to show you this to help you, because again, let me reiterate, worldviews are like noses. Everyone has one. And if you begin to understand the vantage point of what is ultimate, you'll begin to go, oh, that's why I think that way. So anyway, I'll stop right there, and we'll continue with the next slide.